Well, welcome back to the Wall of NFL channel. And let's first off start off by saying, welcome. And if you want to join an NFL fantasy league, check the description. You can join a league and play against me. And today we are going to be talking about the top 10 NFL quarterbacks. And I know a lot of people have done this recently, but I thought I'd do my top 10 because some of the ones that I'm looking at are really dodgy, and I'm just not a big fan of what anyone else is talking about. I think there's a lot of good options, a lot of good ones, a lot of bad ones, a lot of people I trust, so I've listened to them, taken their thoughts on board. But at the end of the day, I think that my list is probably the best one. I did have a bit of a tricky decision over 3 to 5, but other than that, I think that it's a bang on list if I'm being at all honest. And I've got some good reasoning for it as well. So let's kick things off and start off with number 10. Number 10 is Kyler Murray. He is a phenomenal athlete. Let's just get that thing straight. He had 423 rushing yards last year, and defenders could not get anywhere near him. His low center of gravity is something that no other quarterback has. He's 5'10", and that makes his maneuverability he just makes him so hard to tackle. He's so agile, and of course, when you're 5'10" and you're trying to get away from 6'4" huge men, it's a little bit easier than you might think, considering how agile that he is. And those 423 yards went a long way. He also had 3,787 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions with a rating of 100.6. So he's actually a very good passer as well. And the legs are kind of secondary to his phenomenal passing. I think the way he throws the ball is beautiful. He had the top number 1 passing accuracy in the league for most of last year until he got injured. And I think it just goes to show that this guy can only get better. He really struggles in the second half of the season though, and that is why I've got him as number 10, because he's not amazing in the clutch moments, like in the playoffs against the Rams, he really struggled, or maybe he just chose not to because he wanted to get a big contract. But even in the second half of the season, he really didn't look as good as maybe he should have done. So I think that he could, he's got a lot of room for improvement. And so I've got him at 10, but his talent level could easily have him in the top 5, I think. So moving on to number 9 and Derek Carr. I thought this was a lot of top 10 lists actually didn't have him in, and it had like Lamar Jackson or it had Dak Prescott in it. And I just thought, or even Deshaun Watson as well. And I just thought, you know what? Derek Carr's better. He's an elite passer, and last year he ran the Raiders offense, and I thought that was really impressive. The way he and the Raiders overcame John Gruden having to resign in week 4, Henry Ruggs' car crash, and just every single thing they just managed to overcome, and it was all because of Derek Carr. He's a fantastic leader, and the whole locker room looks up to him. So it's not just how good he is as a passer, but as a captain, as a teammate, people just want to follow him, and that makes the team so much better. And he raises everyone on that team the way that some players just can't. I think that so in the first half of last year, he led the league in passing yards, and it was just so impressive what he's able to do with the roster. That's out of all the rosters that all these top 10 quarterbacks have. They have the worst roster, or have had the worst roster in recent years. Now going into the 2022 season, that is not the case because they have bolstered their roster. They've got a lot of good depth now, some star players. So I think that they're going to be a lot better this year. But in recent times, this guy has had the worst team around him. Well, aside from Matthew Stafford. But, this guy, Derek Carr is just a phenomenal athlete. And there's no wonder that he's Josh McDaniels' guy going forward. So number 8, I have got Russell Wilson. And I think he'd be a lot higher on this list had he not just had his worst season yet. He did struggle with a hand injury, which was really not that good, not good for him. He came back a little bit too early, and he didn't showcase his best skills. And going into this season, fully healthy, and on a new team as well, with great weapons, and just a much better team around him that is really going to support him to be the best quarterback that he can be. If he still struggles like he did last year, then maybe he comes off the list. But the talent is still there. His deep pass is the best in the league, and I don't think there's any debate about that. And he's always had some of the best passer rating in the NFL. So he's fourth all-time career passer rating, and it just goes to show this guy's got a lot of talent. He's not the tallest, but he uses his legs really well, and he's a guy that people just follow as well, similar to Derek Carr. And I think the Broncos are going to take a real step up this season, going forward with Russell Wilson as their quarterback. And so moving on to the Super Bowl champion, Matthew Stafford. I love this picture, by the way, with Andrew Whitworth right in the Super Bowl mirror just there. It's so funny. Anyway, Matthew Stafford, he had an incredible year last year, 4,886 yards, nearly got to 5,000, but instead got over 40 touchdowns, 41, and had a passer rating of 102.9. And he's not the most athletic that a lot of these guys are in terms of using his legs, but his arm is phenomenal. He's got a really strong throw, and now being put onto a team like the Rams, having been on the Lions, he's got so much to offer, and we can finally see that because, being on the Lions in a terrible franchise, he's really struggled to show what he can do. But now we can see how good this guy is. And in his first season outside of the Lions, he manages to win the Super Bowl. I think that just kind of says it all and says how much talent this guy has. I think that this season, in the 2022 season, he could win the MVP as well if he manages to keep up the form that he had last year. And they've also got a new wide receiver, Allen Robinson, who is going to potentially take that offense to another level because they've still got Cooper Kupp and, Matthew Stafford as well. Like, those two together are just phenomenal. And then adding Allen Robinson, it could be another animal. Moving on, we have number 6 and Joe Burrow. Possibly, aside from Tom Brady, this guy's got to have the coolest head in the entire NFL at the position. He is so cold, calm, and collected. His composure is something that you just don't see in such a young quarterback. I know he came into the NFL slightly older than a lot of other quarterbacks are, so maybe he's like 26 or something going into his third season. But he managed to throw for 4,600 yards, had a passer rating of 108 last year, and he led a team that's, quite frankly, that was not good to the Super Bowl. So last year, at the start of the season, everyone was predicting the Bengals to finish last in their division and have the worst year out of all the AFC North teams. But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Zach Taylor, they all just managed to show their quality, and game after game won over and over again. As I said, he had such amazing clutch moments in 2 games against the Ravens where they absolutely blew them out, in 2 games against the Chiefs where they won both of them. They beat the Titans in the final moments of the game, the Raiders' final moments of the game in the playoffs. And so in these clutch, huge games, it's Joe Burrow that comes out on top. He didn't quite win the Super Bowl, but I think he showed more last year than Matthew Stafford has. And that's why this guy has to be number 6. Taking that team to the Super Bowl, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So Joe Burrow has to be at number 6. And I think nearly was in my top 5 because of how amazing he was last year. And since entering the NFL, there's not many other first 2 seasons that are better. But if you want to talk about a guy that has a better first 2 seasons in the NFL, that's right, Justin Herbert. Oh my goodness. I think he's my favorite quarterback in the NFL at the moment. He is young, he's hungry, he's athletic, he's so fun to watch, and he has given me so many good memories already since he's been a player in the NFL. And I think the 5,014 yards he got last year was a franchise record in his second season. And in these first 2 years, he's had a really terrible offensive line. And he had a head coach that got fired in his first season, and last year had a rookie head coach. So to do what he has done, and also, a terrible defense last year, who just were trying to throw away games all year. And the fact that Justin Herbert was able to have the kind of season that he's had these last 2 years just shows he is going to be a star. I think if the Chargers are able to get over the hump in terms of how they just end up bottling every single game or all those clutch moments. So it's kind of the Chargers organization is like the opposite to Joe Burrow. They just fold when it comes down to it. So I think if they're able to get over this and able to support Justin Herbert the way he should be supported, they're going to be a really tough team to beat for the next 10, 15 years. And I think he's the best quarterback under 25 in the NFL. And I think he has so much to offer the LA Chargers. So I'm so excited to see where he's able to go in future seasons. And I think, so Justin Herbert, potentially I was going to move all the way up to number 3. But he hasn't been doing it quite as long as this guy, Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers has won the MVP 2 seasons in a row, and last year had a passer rating of 111.9, basically 112. And not to mention, only 4 interceptions last year. That's why his passer rating was so good. His last 2 seasons are second to none because he's won the MVP twice and he's shown his great quality. Last year, in the regular season, there's not many other better quarterbacks all time. Maybe Peyton Manning's better in the regular season, but Aaron Rodgers, just season after season, I think the most interceptions he's thrown in one season since he entered the league, or past 12 years, he hasn't thrown more than 8 interceptions in a season. And just to put that into perspective, Herbert threw 15 last year, Brady threw 12, and even I think Josh Allen as well threw 15 as well. So he makes so little mistakes, and I think that's the difference between Aaron Rodgers and anyone else, and that's why he's been winning the MVP. When it comes to the playoffs, though, teams are starting to figure him out, and last year he was one and done against the 49ers, who were the 7th seed, or were they 6th seed? Either way, they weren't the best team going into the playoffs, and they managed to not beat anyone. And so in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers has kind of sputtered a little bit and not been the best, but I'm sure he'll win a couple more playoffs games going forward, but he has talked about retirement recently, so maybe he won't have much of an opportunity to do that going forward, and especially now losing Devontae Adams to the Raiders. Derek Carr is really going to love it, but Aaron Rodgers not so much. And so here's my third choice. Well, my third best quarterback in the league is Tom Brady. This was a really tricky decision for me because I didn't know whether I wanted to do it. He was third best based on last year or third best based on just his overall ability, because it's a tricky one, or like whether I think he's going to be third best next season, because I really don't think he's going to be as good as he normally is going into this year, because he retired already this year. So you can clearly see that he's not interested in playing the game as much anymore, or he's not as wanting to succeed as much, or he's so focused. This is it. He's so focused on his career after the NFL that I think he's looking beyond it. And once you get to that stage in the NFL, he's already taken a week off during preseason, and when it gets this close to the season, you can't really be taking a week off. And I just don't think he loves it as much as he used to. So the fact that he's in that predicament, I think it means that he's not going to be in the top 5 quarterbacks come this time next year if he doesn't retire. But yeah, I think he's going to have a bit of a down season. But he's still the GOAT. He had the most yards, most touchdowns last year, and he had 67.5% completion percentage with all of those yards and touchdowns. So, you can't discount that, and that's why he's number 3, despite the downturn I think he'll take going forward. So now onto my top 2 guys. It was really hard to choose between which one I wanted to put at number 1 and number 2, but I've gone for Patrick Mahomes at number 2. Last season, at the start of the year, he had the first kind of blip in his career, and the Chiefs went under 500 for the first time since 2015 or something like that. I saw the stat recently. Just crazy numbers. And Mahomes, since he's entered the league, he won the MVP, he won a Super Bowl, got to the Super Bowl the next year, and last year he was the quarterback of the best team in the league for the second chunk of it. Because whilst he did have a bad first half, the second half of his season was still phenomenal. And that's why I've got to put him at number 2. I think his arm talent is unreal. He's mobile. He's got great legs still. He's just been the best Chiefs player over the last, for a very, very long time. And his combination with Andy Reid is just something you can't scoff at. He's been brilliant. And those two, their offense has just been chugging, and it's so impossible to stop. So it is a tough day when you've got to play the Chiefs on a Sunday if you're a defensive player. Not only that, he has Travis Kelce, who is already getting himself into the Hall of Fame. Like, I have no doubts he'll be there eventually. And the fact that he has that tight end, and he's also had Tyreek Hill his career so far. So he's had some great weapons. He's really shown his incredible talent. And it's going to be a many, many years until he even shows any sign of regression, as long as he's got Andy Reid with him as well. I also want to mention that Tyreek Hill's moved on to the Dolphins, so he might take a bit of a down year, similar to Brady, but for different reasons. But I do think that Patrick Mahomes is still going to be top, 1, 2, or 3 over the next 5 or 10 years maybe, unless some new quarterback comes in who's just unbelievable. But it's going to be Allen, Mahomes, and Herbert for many years, all competing to get to championship games and Super Bowls. So number 1, I've already kind of ruined it. It's Josh Allen. I think the difference between Mahomes and Allen is the way that Allen carries his team. He carries his team not only with his incredible arm, and he just on a whim can throw 80, 90 yards. It's just unbelievable. But also, he has really good rushing stats, and he's just a monster. He's like 6'6", 250 pounds or something like that, and he's thrown for 4,400 yards and run for 763 yards. That's like almost Lamar Jackson numbers. He puts a team on his back literally sometimes and just runs the ball down the field, throws it down the field. And the Bills' offense runs entirely through Josh Allen. I'm not sure what it would look like if he got injured. So Bills fans, fingers crossed for you guys that he's able to stay healthy. But he's phenomenal to watch. And you can see, like in the divisional round of the playoffs, when Allen versus Mahomes were just going at it, that fourth quarter, that overtime was unbelievable to watch. Because it was so back and forth, and neither of them wanted to let the other win. But unfortunately, that game had to end, and the Bills didn't make it through. But you could see the amount of talent that Josh Allen had, and that is why he is my number 1 quarterback. So guys, thank you so much for watching this stream. So just want to say those are my top 10 quarterbacks, and just wanted to let everyone know my thoughts, because there's a lot of top 10s going around, and I think that those quarterbacks are my top 10. Let me know your thoughts down below, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week.